Good afternoon.
Yes, that too. I'm very happy to be here. 3 days ago I couldn't talk, so now I'm just sounding a little rough and slightly lower pitched than normal.
I thought you were just putting on your sexy speaker voice for us.
You might want to
I wouldn't do that for you guys.
You might want to get a little further from Matt.
I don't bite unless you ask me to.
So, this isn't, I think Tony said I was going to give the same presentation as Ohio Linux. That's slightly different. But,
Tony
what
exaggerates.
I don't think Tony came to my talk.
I didn't come to it, but I asked you, what do you want put on the email, and you said it's going to be the same with this.
I got
So
a question.
Yeah.
The website said OpenOffice, the email said LibreOffice, and the email also said LibreOffice Writer, being even more specific.
Yes.
What? Okay.
LibreOffice Writer.
Okay.
Hence the fact that it says LibreOffice Writer on the screen.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
he could be starting with that.
That'd be
So-
my fault again.
I did.
Sorry.
I did a presentation at Ohio Linux Fest on LibreOffice as a whole.
Okay.
I had 2 hours, which may seem like a lot of time, but there are 6 different components to LibreOffice. So it was kind of like, if you look out the right side of the window, we're flying over Kansas now. That was about how much time you could give.
Yeah. You would need 4 hours just to do the 3 core programs.
3. There's only 2 core that I use. What's the third?
Presenter,
Oh,
Impress.
okay.
Impress, whatever. You know what I meant.
Yeah.
I can do 3 hours on any one of them.
Yeah.
Without any trouble at all.
In terms of the equation of it, it's kind of, yeah, it's not great. But
So this was it was an interesting opportunity. At Ohio Linux Fest, we did something that we had not done before and discovered we really need to be doing it. And that was to have a track that was oriented to people who are just coming to Linux, just learning about it. So we had a whole day
Tell them
of...
all to run Slackware.
That wasn't my problem. So we had Saturday, we started with Door to Door Geek, kicked off the day with a presentation on stuff you can do with Linux, and then we got into various specifics. I say mine was LibreOffice, Ryan Cather did desktops, someone else, I think Scott Courtney did command line, someone did GIMP.
Somebody did a beginning command line one that was packed together. It was standing room only.
I think that was Scott.
5 deep. I don't remember his name. It was a great presentation.
Yeah.
One of the things he touched on there, I used on Sunday in my LPI.
I heard
exam.
you say that on Sunday Morning Linux Review last week.
Yeah.
Yes, I remember you telling that story. So that was interesting. Now, what I was doing there was just kind of, hey, there's this wonderful thing out here, and here's 1 or 2 little tips. And I thought, I could do that for you guys, but chances are most of you have actually used these programs before, to some degree.
I've got the older OpenOffice.
Doesn't really matter. All right? Because that's the first thing I tell everyone is, at this point, all of the Office suites are functionally the same to about 98%. Now, if you really want to get out there into the margins and say, but, you know, what about this feature here? You might find some differences.
Large files too. We find that I'm going to have to actually install Microsoft Office on the financial person's computer because she uses very large spreadsheets that are linked to other very large spreadsheets, and it just crashes LibreOffice.
Yeah.
Well, so Microsoft software, you know, the Excel and stuff doesn't do very much better either. I mean, I've got this one thing I'm going to have to go with a high-end RSS base, something like that. So it's, you know,
Okay.
yeah, it's like you have limits in Excel. What was it, 65,000 rows or something like that?
That is not the limit any longer. It was at one point. I think they're up to like 1 million now. You know, I had just the opposite experience with when I was at University of Michigan Hospital. A vendor sent us documentation for a system. It was a Microsoft Word document, and it crashed every computer that I tried to open it on. And then I thought, well, just try something a little different. And you know, I always carry around. It might have been OpenOffice at that point, but I always carry it around with me on a USB thumb drive. If you go to portableapps.com, download it. And so I had it with me. I said, let's try it. Opened up just fine, printed out all the documentation. So I'm not saying that they're 100% identical, but for the vast majority of people, any of them will do whatever you want, whether it's OpenOffice, LibreOffice, Corel WordPerfect Office, Microsoft Office, it doesn't matter. And I think that's where, I just wrote a blog post about this the other day, you know, educational malpractice is what I call it, when someone says, oh, we're going to do computer literacy by teaching people this program. That's wrong. You should never teach people, and that's what often happens with Office stuff, is that, well, we're going to teach them Microsoft Office. And,
Yeah.
you know, and the two things that's wrong with it is, number one, they don't realize all of these things work the same. Number two, they teach it wrong anyway.
Well, what do you mean
So,
they teach it wrong? In what way do they teach it wrong?
Well, I'm going to show you the right way today. I'm going to teach you concept. Now, I first developed all of this when I was training people in Microsoft Office. And what I have found is, you put me in front of any of these Office programs, I know what it is I want to do. Now, what may take me a minute or two is to say, okay, where did this program hide this? You know, is it a different menu? But I know what I'm looking for. So what I like to do is start off by saying a word processor is not a text editor. There really is a difference. Okay? Text editors have their place. But when we talk about word processing, we're talking about a mindset. What 99% of people do, if you plunk them down in front of a word processor, is they'll start with a blank document, and then they'll start saying, okay, now what font do I want to use, assuming it's not the default. And do I want to make something bold or italic? And they start clicking buttons all over the place. And it's like, okay. You never learned how to do this right, did you?
Probably not.
So how do you do it right? Now, you may not believe me, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new all right.
So can you tell us what version of so you're saying versions don't matter that much, but just in case anyone wants to follow along, what version are you using here?
3.5. 3.6 is out. I just haven't gotten around to installing it. So this is 3.5. Now, because of the interactions I'm having with the dual monitor setup here, to change that. Now, earlier you pointed out, hey, it's centered. Okay? Did anyone realize I never clicked the center button at any point?
We would have had to actually been watching you.
Try to keep up.
I said, oh, it's already got it set there.
Not only that, take a look in the upper left corner. What does it say?
I think it says heading 1.
Heading 1. Okay. So the first thing we want to understand is that these are what are called styles. And styles do a couple of things for you. First of all, they allow you to make all sorts of settings, built-in settings, for how something is going to appear. What font? In this case, Liberation Sans. Right? And the font size 17.3, which may seem very odd. That's because I used a percentage thing when I was doing it. So it translated that percentage. Liberation, by the way, is a group of fonts that Red Hat created and released under an open license that anyone can use. I don't know whether you're aware of it, but fonts are subject to copyright.
Oh, yes.
So I like to use free stuff, and I'm more concerned with free as in freedom than I am with the dollars. Although, you know, saving a buck doesn't hurt. But I happen to be one of those people who contributes money to open source projects all the time. It's like, you know, if you don't support them, they go away at some point. So it's not the money that matters so much for me, it's the freedom. So I use these fonts. Now, that's one kind of thing. We're going to get into all of the things you can do about appearance. There's so much you can control here. But the other thing that a lot of people miss is that there is semantic information that is built into all of this. The fact that I'm calling this heading 1 is making a statement about what role this is playing in my document. It is the title of my document. I did a couple of programs for Hacker Public Radio that talked about this. One was how, you know, this first became apparent to a lot of people in the context of the web, when W3C said you had to separate content from presentation. And you do it with style sheets and things like that. But it turns out all of those ideas that are embodied in cascading style sheets on the web apply just as much to word processing. For example, one of the things I showed in my Ohio Linux Fest class was you could create an outline in Word and with a click of the mouse turn it into a presentation. But only if you used heading styles and used those appropriately as a hierarchical style. So that's a lot of information. The other thing, why does my computer know to start every document like this? Well, I told it to. And I told it using a template. All Office programs work off of templates. So there is a default template somewhere that says, by default, every time I open a new document, here's how it should open up. Depending on which program you're looking at, it might be a different file name, it may be in a different location. This is, you know, you have to do a little detective work sometimes to say, okay, how do they do it here? But they all do that. So, you know, if it's Microsoft Office, your Microsoft Word template would have been a DOT, or now in 2010 a DOTX, and that would live in a certain location on your Windows system. You know, here what it is you have an area in your home directory for templates. And you can create templates and save them. You don't actually generally need to know where they're being stored. You can work it out. Because you can do it all from within the program. So what I did was I created a template that had all of the settings that I wanted. And then I went into Writer and said, make this my default template. So, where does that? Go to File, Templates. I'm going to Organize here. See that? That's the template I created. I call it KOB default. KOB is how I usually abbreviate my name.
Can you have multiple templates?
You can have all the templates you want. Create a different one for every purpose. And in fact, I'll create at least one before we get out of here today. Now, think about templates. Templates not only tell you this is how I want my document to be organized, they are also containers. And one of the things that is helpful when you're dealing with all of this is to have in mind the idea of objects. All right, now, if you're a programmer, you're probably familiar with object-oriented programming. All of these programs are built on the idea of objects. So the thing about objects is objects can be moved from one place to another. They can have a form of inheritance. If one object contains another, then the contained object inherits certain properties from the container. You know, every object has properties that can be manipulated in various ways. And when you really start thinking that way, it becomes very helpful in dealing with all of this. The template itself is an object. The new document that is based off of that inherits whatever properties were in the template. And that includes your styles. So I want to come back now to styles. The two of them work together, okay? What you want to do is you want to set up styles that match the way you work. So the first thing I just started, for instance, a new job about 7 weeks ago in the state of Michigan. And, Kevin, here's your computer. And, Windows 7, Microsoft Office, all of that. Okay, fine. In my line of work, that tends to be what I find. So the first thing I did is I open up Word and say, okay, let me set this up to work the way I want it to. Get a hold of that default template, start configuring it, create styles, things like that. So, how does this all work? Well, this I said is a heading, so I'll create a title. Now I will press the Enter key.
So it went down to heading 2.
Right.
This is great if you're making an outline.
It's absolutely wonderful if you're making an outline, or if you tend to do a lot of technical writing.
We'll see what happens when you hit the next line. Whether I agree or not.
Well, and the point here, Matt, is I set this up to match my workflow.
Right.
Okay. Want to know what happens when I hit Enter?
Okay, good. I agree.
Paragraph. What else do we notice about the paragraph?
It's changed font.
It's changed font.
It's no longer bold.
No longer bold.
In
It's indented.
Is it smaller? It looks a little smaller.
The font
Well, yeah, the font size.
will be smaller because he went from heading 2 to a paragraph.
Yeah. Now, maybe you don't want to indent the first line of your paragraphs, but that's how
I always,
that's how I was taught when I was a wee lad. So I set it up that way.
Now, I have a question, Kevin.
Yeah.
I don't ever use the styles, which I'm sure is wrong.
Right.
It makes me work a lot harder, okay? So I never see those funky looking little paragraph symbols.
Right.
I'm assuming they're not going to appear in your final text.
That they are an example of what's called a non-printing character.
Okay.
I turned those on. I can turn them off at any time. All I have to do is go up here and say, all right, turn off
Okay.
non-printing characters.
But if you printed the document with those on, would they print?
No, that's what non-printing means.
Okay. Well, I don't know.
So there are several things. That's not the only non-printing character. You see the dot between mdlug and presentation?
Yes.
That represents a space. If I put in a tab, you'd see a little arrow that represents the tab. Those are the three major non-printing characters. Now, a lot of people are going to say, oh, I can't stand looking at all of that. It confuses me. All right, turn it off. I have it on because I know what all those things mean. And when you are trying to figure out why can't I get my program, my word processing document to look the way I want it to look, very often when you look at the non-printing characters, you'll see what the problem is. Now, you notice that each one of the things I have up here has a paragraph symbol next to it. That's telling you something that's helpful when you're working with styles. These are all what are called paragraph level styles. Now, in essence, the paragraph occurs when you hit the enter key. Every time you hit the enter key, what you're saying to the program is, I am finished with this object. Please create the next object. So a paragraph level object could be a paragraph, or it could be a title or a subhead, or it could be an item on a list. Any of those things are paragraph level objects. There are other kinds of objects and other kinds of styles. You can have character styles that say, I want to have a style that applies to several letters. And you might think, well, when would that come in useful? Well, in a corporate environment, maybe you have a company name that is supposed to appear a certain way every time you use that company name. You create a style for it, and just apply that style every time the company name comes up, and it will appear in that particular font, size, whatever characteristics you give it. So those are examples of what you can do with that. So now I could I am not a good typist. So this will be a very short paragraph. So I'll hit enter, and I've got another paragraph.
How do you get it to go back to the styles? The styles type, the heading 2.
Come up here.
Oh, you would just have to manually change it because
Yeah.
it's not set up to do that.
What you're doing is you're saying, what am I most likely to be doing? When I'm writing paragraphs, when I end a paragraph, what am I most likely to do next? Probably write another paragraph, more often than anything else. So it's a matter of figuring out your own workflow. So, styles and formatting, which you can get with the F11. Here's where all of your styles live.
Will writer do a talk? Table of contents
Oh, yeah.
with active links?
Yeah, it'll do all of that. So I'm going to hold down the control key and click on this line here. And that now is going to anchor all the styles over here. That's how I normally work. I have everything anchored so I can go over here. Now, one of the things that you need to know is that some styles come already built in, but you can modify them. So heading 1, heading 2, heading 3, those are there out of the box. So I didn't have to create those. I did modify them to work the way I want them to work.
Can you, is there like a block quote that will put it in a, center it and everything for you all at once, or what? Because I normally do my block quotes by hand. You know what I mean by block quote, right?
Yeah. Oh, here we go. Quotations.
Oh wow, yeah, it's going to give you all of the options right there to set it up, and then you could just apply the block quote to a certain amount of text, and wham, it'll apply all that formatting right to it, right?
Yeah. And so the thing is that you can modify any of those.
Yeah, because I normally just drop my quote in, and then I click anywhere in the paragraph that's the quote, and then I drag this one in and drag that one in. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's
time consuming.
it is. Not only is it time consuming, but you may drag differently on any given.
Exactly, and trying to get them all to be lined up in the pain in the ass.
So you create a style, you apply the style, and it'll be absolutely consistent. Not only that, but
great.
You could have a long document, and you could say, you know, I don't like the way I did all the block quotes in this 100-page document.
So you're fucked.
Just change it up. You just change the style.
And then it'll reapply to everything automatically.
Yeah. You can do that.
Wow. I'm liking this more and more.
No, it's, when you understand, I was at Concordia. I was on the faculty at Concordia some years back, and I mean, I just started as a faculty member, and then I became the faculty development officer, charged with teaching everyone how to use technology. And then at one point they said, we need someone to put the college catalog together. So, you know, I knew more about the software involved and everything than anyone else did, so it became my problem. Now, what happened there was that every single department would draft their part of the college catalog, you know. So the English department, you know, sent me their stuff. The math department sent me their stuff, and so on.
College had no style guide, so everything
was all different. Everything was all different. So, I mean, the first thing I did was take those and say, okay, let's apply consistent styles. Then all of a sudden it starts looking like a unified package. And then you could go in and make those, you know, that was over 100 pages. In that case, Microsoft Word, but point is you could do that. It's similar to the web. Have you ever been to CSS Zen Garden?
CSS what?
Zen Garden. It's a website, and it's basically what it is they have a body of content that never changes, but you just click the mouse and the entire appearance of the site changes every time you click a different selection, because all it's doing is swapping the style sheet. All right? Separate content from presentation. Right? That's what we're talking about here. So one of the things that, like I said, the heading styles are built in. They're already there, but you can modify them. Interestingly enough, there is no paragraph style. I have never seen a word processing program yet that comes with a paragraph style. They'll have text body and stuff like that, which I never use. It's fundamentally useless. So I had to create one. Right? Now that's not hard because I come over here. If I right click anywhere in this, right click brings up options. New, modify, delete. I have paragraph selected. That's why delete showed up. If it wasn't
Modify or no?
if it wasn't there already, I could just say new, and it would just bring up a blank. So I'm just going to step through. Let's do, since it came up.
Block quote.
Block quote. Now, you see all the tabs that are up there?
No.
Are you getting a sense that there's a whole lot of options to what you can do?
Yes.
And understanding them. Now, the first thing, there's a thing that says auto update. Never check that. That's a time bomb waiting to go off on you. Here's what happens. Remember, we were talking about changing everything in your document. So let's say you're in your 100-page document and you've been doing block quotes all the way along, and all of a sudden you say, I think I want this block quote to be italic. So you change it to italic. And if you had auto update in, it would do it to every other block quote in your document. You don't want that. I'm thinking, maybe you do. And I'm telling you, that's what that check mark does. So avoid that one. Now, what comes next? Remember how in my template the heading 1 led right to the heading 2, the heading 2 led right to the paragraph? It's because I put in here, that's what I want next. So your block quote, are most of your block quotes going to be one paragraph in length?
They usually are, yeah.
And then you're going to go back to your regular text. So let's tell it to jump back to paragraph when you're done. Linked with. Now, if you know anything about objects, you know that objects have inheritance. So you want to be careful. There are times when you want that inheritance to happen. I don't think it's an advanced topic, so I'm not going to get to it today. But you can set up basically an outline style linking of all of your headings with numerical hierarchies and all of that. And in that case, linking them is probably a good idea. But in general, I don't. If you link the styles, you're creating inheritance. So if I go back and change the original style, then anything that links to it changes the same way. So I don't generally want that. So what I do is I say none. Yeah.
Normally I can see where you wouldn't want inheritance, but I could see like on block quote that you probably want to inherit the paragraph styles.
You could do that. But remember, my paragraph style includes an indent and things like that. So, and you might not want it to be exactly the same font, this paragraph. So, as long as you're creating a block quote style, it's up to you.
Mm-hmm.
I'm explaining what these options do. So,
you can also, if you explicitly declare in the block quote, to not indent, then that would override.
Yeah. Okay, so that's the organizer. It says it's going to put it in custom styles, which is fine. You've got some other options here, but custom styles is okay. Now, indent. We have three options. First line is what I would have used for my paragraph style.
Right.
So in this one, we want to do indent before, right? So that's your left side indent. You can do that way,
Can you type in that field too?
or you can do that way.
Do
So-
that again?
Huh?
Do it again?
Well, I just, this one, I just typed it.
Oh, okay. Standard.
Yeah, I did one each way, just to illustrate that. Now, spacing. My documents, I tend to have a blank line after each paragraph level object. So there's a blank line between paragraphs, there's a blank line between a heading and a paragraph. That's how I do it. Now, if you had, there was a reference earlier to a, organization-wide style sheet. If there is one, then you take that into account.
Is there a way, like, I normally blank line between like my heading and my first subheading.
Right.
Then blank line between the subheading and the first text, right?
Right.
But then between my text under that heading and my next subheading, I have two blank lines. How would you set? Would you set two blank lines after paragraph? Would you set a blank line after paragraph and a blank line before the subheading?
You can put a blank line before or after or both of an object. Now the problem is if you put a blank line before your subheading, that does it for all of them, including the very first one.
Right.
But if you did it that way and then went to your heading 1, and said no blank line after it, but heading 2 has a blank line in front of it, that would work the way you want it to, I think.
Because I wouldn't want it after all the paragraphs, because if there's multiple paragraphs,
Exactly.
you don't want the two. Yeah.
So it sounds like in your case, maybe what you want is a blank line before and after heading 2, but no blank line after heading 1.
Yeah. That would work.
That would work. Okay. So, like I say, mine, I have a very consistent style. So what I do is I put no spacing before, but I will put, and I find, 0.18 inches tends to work as a blank line. Single spaced. Now, you can change this if you need to. Most people are fine. This will be left aligned. You could have it right, center, or justified.
Who doesn't use Justin? I want to meet that guy and beat him with a stick.
I don't want to justify in most
Well, the
cases.
thing with justify is that you've got your margins absolutely fixed, and then they have to insert weird
Yeah.
spaces to make it
Yeah,
work.
Yes.
it makes the
No.
text look weird.
I will go
Not.
with left.
I agree with you.
You got to have those rigid ruler straight lines down both sides.
Okay. So,
Only if you do
whatever
these letters.
you want. Now, you can put in some hyphenation rules if you want. Generally it works pretty well anyway. You could put in a break. So for instance, let's say you're working on a long document and you say, okay, heading 1 is the title of my document, but every time I have a heading 2, I want that to start at the top of a brand new page. Well then in heading 2, you'd say insert a page break before the heading 2. And that would automatically put it on brand new page. Keep with next, all right, do not split paragraph. Now, what that will do, if you want that to appear as one block, number 1, make sure it isn't more than a page in size, otherwise it's just impossible. But what it would do is it'd say, okay, you've got 3 blank lines, but this thing is 5 lines long, so it all goes to the next page. Okay? Keep with next paragraph. I do that with my heading 2, heading 3, and so on. They're likely to be a heading with text following, and it would look really stupid if I had a heading 2 at the bottom of the page
You would
and
not.
then everything referenced
And how
on
many
next.
documents do you see that do that? A ton.
Because they don't use it right.
I do all this manually, though, Kevin. This styles thing, I'm really digging it. I'll do it manually. Like, if I notice that my heading is along by the bottom, I'll go above it and add a couple of blank lines to force it to the next page. Now I don't have to do that.
Exactly. Now, widow and orphan control, and I'll tell you right now, I always get confused as to which is which. But you're typing along, you're doing a paragraph, all right, you're at the end of a page, jumping over to the next page. There are two possible things that can happen that just look really stupid. One of them is you've got the first line of a paragraph at the bottom of a page and the rest of the paragraph on the next page. Or you've got almost the entire paragraph on this page and the very last line on the top of the next page. One of those is a widow and one of those is an orphan. I can never keep track which is which. But for something like a block quote or a paragraph, I would say yes, do this. And here's what it does. I've got it set for 2 lines. And if you have this set, you will see it in action, you know, if you're watching the screen while you type. You'll be typing along and say, okay, it looks like I'm at the bottom of a page and I'm still at the bottom of the page, and then whoa, 2 lines of text just jumped to the next page. What happened? Well, what happened was the computer didn't know when you were going to be done. So it was going to allow you to go 2 lines, and it, you know, what it does is it fusses with other things like your margins and what have you to make it work. And then once you've got past the 2 lines, it said, okay, you've gone past the limit, so I'm going to move that over and not bother with trying to fix this and fit it in because it's just too much text. So that's what widow and orphan control is about. Useful thing to have.
Yeah, I think widow would be related to heading. Like if like you said, the heading above it.
Mm-hmm.
Without the heading as the male, the widow is separated if she's on the next page.
It actually has nothing to do with headings.
So it has nothing-
It just has to do with paragraph, body text, that kind of stuff. I can't remember what the logic is as to why one is a widow and the other one is an orphan. You know?
Unless the first line's on the next page, the first page, and then the rest of it's on the
Yeah.
next page, and that's the widow, and then it's the other way if it's the orphan. A majority's on the first page, and
Could
the last
be.
line's on the next page.
If you really need to know, Google it. I'm sure the answer will be there. Then, you
A
know,
widow refers to a short line at the end of the paragraph.
Oh, okay.
An orphan is, in contrast, the first line of a paragraph printed alone at the bottom of the previous page.
So it's
Thank
the
you.
opposite. When the first line prints at the bottom by itself, that's the orphan. And when the last line moves to the next page, that's the widow.
Okay.
Thank you, Gibby.
Mm-hmm.
It was kind of bugging me.
So, you know, here's where you make your font choices. You've got your liberation. I tend to use. Now, I find, and it was kind of designed that way, that for instance, liberation serif looks like the Times New Roman that Microsoft Word uses. They're very similar. But you know, if you have other fonts. I'm not a graphic designer, so
Fixed width fonts.
well, that would be mono.
They're a beautiful thing.
Yeah, it's like the typewriter thing. So you can pick which, and they call it a font family because for a lot of these, if you take a look at it, they've got the italic version and the bold version in different sizes and what have you. So then. Say, okay, go regular italic, bold, bold italic, and then what size. So This is just, regular 12 point. But, what I could do, for instance, this is a good way to set off block quotes and say, I'll put the block quotes in one space bar. I won't in this case, but at this point you could. Now, all kinds of stuff you can do here. You can change the color. Okay. You could make a particular style be all caps or small caps.
What's small caps?
They're capital letters, but they're printed in a smaller size than the capital of the font family.
Why would you do that?
Because
Stands out.
as I said, I am not a graphic designer. I'm just saying there are times people do that.
So you're giving me just more reasons to shoot people.
That could be. And most of, I'll tell you, the font effects tab is one where I rarely, if ever, have a reason to go here. This is the place where most of the sins occur. All right. But for those of you who were designing web pages back in the dark ages, remember the blank tag?
Oh my god.
Well, that's
Just
what
wanted to
this
shoot
is. This
developers.
is the blink tag. Right here. Now position. Okay. Again, for what we're doing, there's no reason, but you could make this a superscript or a subscript. If you don't know what kerning is, don't worry about it. You could make it go down the side of a page instead of across. And you've got, and in this case, you don't have to worry about outlines or tabs. Drop caps can be interesting. That's like the old medieval manuscript where the very first letter was much bigger and it went down below the line and text flowed around it. That's a drop cap, and so on. Backgrounds, borders, so on. So, most of the stuff for text is going to be in these first 5 tabs. So, all right. So what I can do here now that I've created this, I'm just going to start filling up.
Yeah, you'll need at least 3 lines.
And you said you couldn't type.
Now stop. Didn't we justify it?
Okay, I thought we did. Let's take a look at that. Oh.
Well, just
I didn't apply the style. That's my fault. So I need to. There we go.
But it's still not justified.
Well, it actually.
No, you did left.
I did not do.
Oh, you didn't justify. You just said it left indent and a right indent,
Right.
and didn't justify it.
Yeah.
So you were
But now that I've applied that, it now is up here. So I just double clicked on it to apply it there. This, in other words, doesn't normally show you every style in the program. It's the stuff you've been working
Right,
with, which
stuff
if you
in
think
use.
about it makes sense.
right. The stuff in use.
Okay. Now,
Are we going to talk about table of contents creation at all?
I hadn't planned to.
Okay. I don't want to. It's just a point of interest of mine, and I don't want to divert you from your presentation.
Okay. So another thing that I did was I went to heading 1, and this is what it looks like after I modified it. So you can see heading 1 was already there to begin I set it to be followed by a heading 2. It's not linked with anything. Space below, but otherwise not indented in any way. I have it set to be centered. Now for heading 1, chances are keep with next paragraph is not going to be a big deal. If you wanted to do a document where heading 1 appeared all by itself on the first page and then everything on the second, you need to remove that. But, you know, generally speaking with headings, it's just kind of a rule I have. For all of my headings, I always say keep with next paragraph. Sans, bold, and 145%.
How come you use that instead of a font size?
Well, because at a certain point when I started making it larger, the program switched over into doing it in percentage terms. So, now 145% got me where I wanted to get.
This is about what point size, please?
You know, I would say it's in the 20, 22, 24, somewhere around there.
That's not what I use for.
Yeah.
What's the percentage based on? You
I
know,
think
what's your 100% is what I'm asking.
It's
Original
the base,
base style of
the
font?
base paragraph font.
Is it the paragraph? I mean, paragraph's something he defined,
It's 12 point. Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure how that. I mean, this was a case where I tried a couple of numbers until I found one I liked and said, okay, that works.
It's probably a percentage based on whether it was the Pica or a Elite style font that was produced, those being the original typewriter sizes.
Mm.
I doubt that.
Now, in this case, I went for sans. I tend to go with sans on my headings and serif on my paragraphs.
Why?
That's the standard, actually.
Yeah, this is something I ran into some years back about. We'll start with serif. And when we talk about serif, what we're talking about, I'll use a highly technical term, the fiddly bits.
Yes.
So you notice this D comes up and there's just a little,
Yeah.
that's a serif. All right. All right, so that was heading 1 and then heading 2. Again, Liberation Sans 14. So yeah, that other one, maybe that heading 1 was like 16 point or. Well, wait a minute. I know what it was.
17.3.
17.3. Why guess when you can look it up? So this is a 14-point bold italic. All right. So my heading 1 was not italic. Heading 2 is italic. Italic, in case you're wondering, is a type of font invented by Aldus Manutius, who was one of the very first printers of books in Venice, right after Gutenberg invented the movable type printing press. And he created that font. It was called italic because it was done in Italy. So that was the font that he used when he was printing the first books in Venice.
Now it's just a style of a font.
Yeah. But what you want to do, I think this helps, is I'm thinking that while I have this in my word processing program, I always know whether it's a heading 1 or a heading 2 or a heading 3 or whatever by just looking at the upper left side of the screen, it's going to tell me. But when it's printed, you don't have all of that information. So I want to make them enough different that, you know, just at a glance I realize, okay, that's a subhead, or that's a subhead of a subhead. And you do that by making it different. Take a look at books, and you'll see that same thing in books. I've seen any number of them where, you know, they will have a section and then a subsection and a subsection, and you know, it's a slightly different, and usually the size starts going down as well as you go from heading 2 to heading 3.
So in the publishing arena, so if you were writing a book, right, would you stylize everything and put it in there with all that information? I mean,
Yeah, absolutely.
They often use latex, but
There's a small investment up front, and then the return on the investment just keeps flowing after that. Because I can sit down, I just open up the document and start typing. And I don't even have to think about most of this stuff because it's already set up for me. The most I might have to do is say, oh, I want to switch styles at this point. Click. You know, and I do a lot of writing, so it really does pay off. Now, one of the things that comes out of that is that my documents are, you always know that I was the one who wrote it. You just glance at it and say, oh, it's one of Kevin's. Because in essence what I have done here is I have created my own style sheet. And so all my documents are going to look the same.
so I mean, going back to this idea of, you know, publishing and having like everybody using the same. I mean, you had different departments pulling in data.
Right.
So, you know, I don't even know if there's going to be the same groups of people using the same software and such, right? So if I, you know, want to provide documents to someone else, I try to make it plain vanilla, and it looks like maybe I could embed some additional types of things like font changes
You really
and things
can.
like that without.
Most of this stuff will round trip just fine going between different word processing programs. So yeah, I mean, you could actually put that in. Let's say you were using Microsoft Word and you wanted to share it with someone using OpenOffice and someone else using LibreOffice. Put your styles in there. Most of the time they're going to transfer just fine.
Okay, well, so
How does your Red Hat fonts transfer to people that are on Windows machines and using
Well, yeah, and
Office?
what happens there, the same thing happens in reverse. If someone gives me a Microsoft Word document that I open on my Linux machine, and I don't have Times New Roman installed, for instance,
yeah.
the program looks for what it thinks is the best fit. Most of the time, it does a pretty good job. Occasionally, you get something hilarious.
Yeah, I had someone send me where their heading was in a MT script bold, and my machine at home just what it made it look like. My laptop had it, and I knew what it looked like. My machine at home, when it opened it, it totally looked way different.
Yeah. Unfortunately, that will happen. We are getting to the point now where you can do things like embed fonts in your document and stuff like that. I know LibreOffice is working on that.
Is there better fonts to use that would transfer between them better? Because I know my wife refused to use OpenOffice because when she would go to work and try to open it up, she'd have to go through and reformat everything so it would line up the way she wanted it to be. Is there like certain fonts that we use instead?
Did she save it as a Microsoft Office document first?
Yeah, .doc.
I haven't had problems with that.
I run into that problem a lot
I've had it
myself.
a few times myself, and then one person did something really bad. He put a bunch of macros in his document, and they weren't even necessary. It just
Right.
turned into complete garbage.
well, so we've had situations where you get a new version of Office and you can't use, you know, you can't send your new version documents to someone with the old version, and so you have to save everything in the old version.
Right. Yeah, that's a separate problem. Ideally, the solution to that is everyone use open document format. And who knows, that could happen. So, the thing you have to understand about this is that these styles are contained within a template. So if you were to, if Matt, for instance, full of enthusiasm with what he just learned, was to open up Writer and just immediately start making all these style changes, then when he's done, he closes Writer, he comes back the next day. Where did it all go? It disappeared. You have to contain these styles in a template.
And what's the base template called that Writer uses? Because like in Microsoft Word, it's .doc. Or no, what's
Normal.
it called? Normal.doc.
Normal.dot.
Yeah.
Not .doc. .dot.
Yeah, well-
Or in current versions, .docx.
What's the difference? I mean, I don't understand what's the
Template.
difference.
A T is for template.
Doc and .doc is.
DOC is the document, DOT is the template
Okay.
in older versions
Right,
of
and they-
Microsoft Word. In current versions, it's DOCX, and the X is basically XML. And then the template is DOTX. And yes, in Microsoft Word, Microsoft Word, you would go looking for that normal.dot in or DOTX, and then you would specifically open it, make all of your modifications, and save it back again. Writer, it's a little bit different. In Writer, there's not a file somewhere that is the template. It's embedded in the program somewhere. So what you do is you say, I will just create a template, and then I will tell Writer, this is my default template. Now, that's not...
But if you're doing different things, like you say, this is my documentation template.
Right.
This is my letter template.
Right.
This is, you know, like that, right?
So the way I did it on this was,
So what do you hit for new window?
Control N. It's all standard. So all I had to do was, I would come in here, I've got a new thing now. I set heading 1 up here. That's by going in and saying, all right, make that heading 1. Then I created my paragraph style the way we saw. Then I modified my heading styles the way we saw. I modified the other heading styles too. I just didn't, at a certain point it just becomes boring seeing the small variations in heading styles. And when I did all of that, I save it as a template.
I have a question.
Yeah.
You have like 10 different headings to choose from, right?
Mm-hmm.
What's the point of anything beyond heading number 3? Because when you get to heading number 3, its font size is the same as your controllable.
Yeah. Yeah, you can control it. It's when I was doing the college catalog, I actually got to heading 5.
You increase then the ones above it so that it gives you a larger font.
Well,
for
you
that heading,
increase
or-
it a little bit, and then the other thing is you can play with the distinction. If it's bold, it's going to look like a heading no matter what you do, but one might be italic and one might not, even though they're the same size. You're trying to present a visual. Yeah, most of the time I never get past heading 3. Occasionally, though, something comes up. I think of it almost like outlining what I'm doing. So anyway, I would simply save the template, and then when I've saved the template, I come back in and to organize. And here's the template I saved. I come over to commands and say set as default template. And then from that point on, every time I open a new document, it'll be based on this template that I just created.
But there's no way of like saving that and then transferring it to another system, another computer?
Yes, there is. Because this template is now a file. All right, now the built-in default template that comes with Writer does not exist as a separate file somewhere. But
Okay.
the one that I created does exist as a separate file.
Okay, all
And so
right.
what I did, after I had saved it where Writer expects it to be, is I uploaded it to my Dropbox.
Yes, that's what I was gonna think, is you
And
wanna have it
then
with you
in
all
my
the time.
Dropbox, I could just pull it into every other machine where I might want to use it. And by the way, it works just as well in Windows or Linux. I don't have a Mac to test it there, but
So that file transfers the same
transfers
information?
over to Windows and works just as well as Windows.
Oh, okay.
If you're using LibreOffice.
LibreOffice, right? Yeah. So I'm gonna create another one because it's gonna show you some of the other features.
How did you make it so that when you open LibreOffice that it automatically starts you as a heading 1?
Because when I started with something that had heading 1 as the very first item, and then saved it as a template. So the template had heading 1 as the first item.
Okay.
And I started with what was essentially a blank document. And the blank document would have had something like text body, which, as I said, I never use. So I just went up here and said, no, change that to heading 1. And then when I saved it as a template, the template had heading 1 as being what you get right out of the box. And then when I modified the heading 1 style to say, and it's centered, and it has this font, and all of that, and save that in the template, it's all there. So I'm going to create a different template now. So here, I'll work with text body just to show you that I'm capable of it. I'm going to write and insert a date field. Okay? So when you insert a date field, what that means is every time you open it, it'll take a look at the settings in your computer and give it the current date. I'm going to hit enter again. And do it twice, and then
So that brings up the problem people working on documents in other parts of the world, and so you're trying to do versioning of different documents, and so it's just going to pick up what their local
you have to
time
know
is.
when to do it and when not.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay? Now, please bear in mind, I am building a template. The template will have a field in it. I can create a document off of that, which will have that fixed. So, did I forget where that was? I might have. I thought that was a field. All right, I forgot where that was located. Well, it happens.
Oh. I thought it was your-
Is a hookah a play on words, Kevin?
Yes. Let's see, did I?
DOS lessons. DOS lessons.
I still get hit.
You'd be surprised how many people still like playing with dolls.
You know, I still get people who stumble across that and start sending me questions about it.
From
So-
where? Like the fifth world?
Welcome to Microsoft.
It's still used sometimes for some of the self-booting flash up.
Yeah,
updaters.
Flashers still use it a lot, especially
Yeah.
Dell flashers. But you can't interact with it in that case. It's just a flashing program.
Right,
It
but
runs
I mean, it
and
still
it
gets
runs and it's
used.
done.
Yeah.
Yeah, placeholder, that's what it is.
So is anyone on our watching this remotely?
I know there's 2 people. It shows 1 viewer. The big blue button, if I'm having problems with it. So today I'm just running it on Google Hangout. And there's you can broadcast it so you can have as many people connect in as we want. We've got 1,000 people connect in. And they can view it. And then if they wanna chat back, ask questions, then you can get in the IRC channel. So that's what we're doing right now. And Carl and what's his name? Oturuk, I can't remember his real name. They're both in IRC and watching the Google Hangout.
So did Dwayne ever get in?
Who is Carl?
Carl and Oturuk.
Oh, that's Pat.
Pat. Oh yeah.
Otuka Rider?
Okay, so we have someone named Dwayne who was asking too. Did we see that?
No, is it an email?
Yeah, I went to the main list. So is there anybody that's watching remotely that has a question?
I haven't had any yet.
Okay.
Where's this question? Because I don't see any emails from Dwayne.
Okay.
Not today, at least. Oh wait, that's on the mug.
Oh yeah.
User.
Oh, what's that? mdlug. Oh, he responded back to my thing about the mug videos.
Okay. Yeah.
All right, I'm just having trouble figuring out where that thing was.
Jeez, Matt.
It's called a placeholder
Did
field.
you ask the question and you can't find them?
No.
No, it had nothing to do with him. I was working with it the other day, and I'm just drawing a blank now. It's called a placeholder field, and it's one of those things where you can insert a field, and it just click here and start typing, and it puts in whatever you're typing. And for some reason, I'm just, everything I'm trying here is just not working. So,
One of those things.
one of those days, yeah.
It's because you're giving a presentation and you have lots of people watching you.
That could be.
When you walk away from this, you'll click into your head. Oh yeah, that's how.
Yeah, that's happened before too.
Well, tonight when you're having dinner, you'll remember.
Placeholder there,
Huh?
now or more.
Oh, there we go. Thank you. So it was where I thought it was. I just wasn't seeing it.
You just could remember you needed a placeholder.
I think it's just MSG. Maybe MESG.
Some functions.
Okay. I hit it twice, didn't I? So it was where I thought it was. Okay, so what I've done is I've typed in deer. I don't know if you can see the little dot, there's a space. Placeholder for name, comma.
That might be one.
All right, and I'm going to do another.
See, because MESG is a command, but it only takes a wire in it after. So maybe it's message yes. You say message yes. And then type your message. No, something wrong.
So this is a template for a letter, and I could go on to put in my address, telephone number, email address, contact info, whatever I wanted to put in. This can then be turned into a template. So I'll go up to templates, save, and call this
Right. You have to be that by your user. You would have to have your regular user send it to root. From root to your regular user. I think it's right. Oh, I am walking through right now. It has to also be logged in. You have to have two shells.
Now, if you want to use this, we talked about how when you create a default template, anytime you open a new document without any further specification, it's based on the default template. But now I don't want to use the default template. I want to use my letter template. So when I come to new, I'm going to come down here to templates and say, I want something based on that.
Maybe it doesn't work like SSH.
Okay. So now I could print this out and mail my letter. Now what I didn't need to do was put in the date or the stuff here at the bottom. Sincerely, I left space for my signature. Now this is just it's a quick and dirty template that I just whipped up to show you that that's how that works. You can create obviously more complicated templates. You could we'll whip out. Only problem, I have to keep changing this every time.
Did you control C, right? That you should done.
So, here, I'll go back to that.
It says control C. To end the right session. Anyway, that should have popped up on your screen.
Why is two different users? Carl said they're having problems listening or hearing the questions. So when there's a
Okay.
question, if you could repeat it.
Okay, yeah. So here, just a quick memo template.
Is the size of the field limiting what you type into it, or can you
No.
type?
So the question was, is the size of the field limited?
Yeah, the size of the field, these placeholder fields could have as much as you want. They'll just keep expanding.
So the question though was, does the size that you use, that you define there, indicate the size of the final
It was just-
inserted text?
No,
So
it doesn't.
if this has something to do with like the sizing had like a wraparound problem or issue where you have a name that's like 600 characters, that's going to be, you know, wrapping around and causing problems, and so it will continue to take whatever you want to put in there.
I don't know everyone's names, so let's. So you can see, I could keep typing
Okay.
in there as much as I wanted. Okay. So placeholder text is just something that says, here's what you need to put here. And as soon as you start typing, it disappears and what you type takes its place. And, you know, I could have several paragraphs going in there. It would be fine with it. You know, if I use this as a, you know, one of the things I do, for instance, by day, I am a project manager working for the state of Michigan. And project managers, we do a lot of meetings. I basically define my job, 90% of my job is preparing for meetings, running the meetings, and then documenting what happened afterwards in those meetings.
You actually document what happened in the meetings? Wow, that is
I
project
do,
management.
because I hold people to it. So, you know, if one of the developers on my team says, I'll have that for you by Friday, it goes into the minutes of the meeting. And on Friday, it's like,
Where's it at?
Okay.
I didn't mean this Friday.
yeah, you might get away with that once. So, you know, I have set up an agenda template. All right. Now, one of the things I like to use tables for this kind of stuff. So my agenda template would. That. So again, I'll get rid of that. So here, what I might want to do is
So is this type of thing, you know, embedding all these special types of formatting, those transfer easily over to Word, Microsoft?
I've found that they do.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean,
So if you say
someone was talking about macros and stuff like, you know, when you start getting into macros, you know, you can't get those to transfer properly between two different versions of Word.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
So you get into stuff that's really hairy like that, then you've got some issues.
So the question was, does the formatting?
Yeah, if I did this in LibreOffice and then I sent it to Gip and he wanted to open it in Microsoft Word, what would it look like when he opened it?
Now, if you save as a docx,
Right.
that will save all your formatting that you've done, except in the docx format.
Yes. But I found if the document is not really complicated, I usually don't have any trouble with just saving it in its native format. I mean, the Word 2010 will open
It will.
an ODT file.
Really? But 2003, I know won't. I don't know about 2007.
Right.
I don't think it will.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Yeah, they will. The Office 2010 will open open document format files. I don't think it'll save in that format, but it will open them.
Okay.
Yeah,
I just don't know too many people with 2010. A lot of homeowners just have free or whatever they got free.
That's what I got at work.
Yeah.
So
I send
that's the thing about having a job is that you work with what they give you.
Yeah.
Right?
I send people PDF a lot of times.
We use LibreOffice at work. Everything's LibreOffice. Even the Windows users use LibreOffice.
Good.
Yeah, I will use LibreOffice on a Windows machine,
Yep.
and you know.
Because the vast majority of our users use Linux, but a lot of like our office personnel uses, like the secretaries, they use Microsoft Office. And Dan, the building guy, he uses Microsoft Office too. He was one of the founders of the company, but he uses Microsoft Office because he's not a computer guy. And he went to school. Guess what his degree's in? He's a packaging engineer. They design packaging. Boxes, those blister packages,
I
all
didn't
kinds of
even know there was
packages.
a
An engineer yet.
Oh, yeah. So I know people that do
It's a
that.
science.
Yep.
I question the term engineer.
Well, you try to design something that has to do all that.
That wasn't the issue. The issue is there's no formal engineering degree in packaging.
Yeah,
It's just-
packaging engineer.
No, it's electrical or mechanical or civil or chemical. There's no
Well,
packaging.
that's
It's a
mechanical.
title somebody gets. It's not an engineering degree.
It's a mechanical.
Yes, his degree is in package engineering.
What school?
The University of Michigan.
I'll look it up.
Okay.
I never heard of it. That's not a real degree.
No, I've heard of it too.
Yeah,
So.
of course it is.
North of downtown, like over the circus.
So, you know, this is actually, I shouldn't fill in all of this if it's a template. That wouldn't make sense, but,
He gives us an example so we can understand.
yeah. So, you know, as a template, I would probably, well, I'd leave myself in as recorder because that probably would be constant. And then just save this as a template. Okay, so come down to templates, save. Meeting agenda. Okay. Alright, and I could come in and say, okay, I want to do a meeting agenda. And now just start filling it in. Okay? Now, if you wanted to have specific styles, because this is the next thing, all right? The styles that are available to you from one template to the next can be different because styles live within templates. So, you know, you can take advantage of that by creating special styles that you only use in certain situations and putting them into that template. Now, you can organize your styles, and again, this is a generally true statement. But you can take styles and add them to different templates. There's the There's that organizer. Okay. Don't remember exactly where that is located, but you can do that. Now, one of the things, I didn't know you were interested in table of contents, or I'd prepared something.
Yeah.
But
Big deal.
you did tell me about something that you had a question about the other day, so I did do a little bit of preparation on
Which was? Oh, mail merge.
that. Text boxes.
Oh, yeah, text boxes.
When you take a look at this styles window, the styles and formatting that I have docked on the side here, you see paragraph styles. Right? All of these that we're looking at are what are called paragraph styles. So they are objects that are created every time you hit the enter key, in other words. Then there are character styles. Character styles are ones that might apply to one or a handful of characters within a larger. So for instance, if you apply a character style to 3 letters, you don't hit enter when you're done. That would create a whole new paragraph level object. But you can just apply it to a few characters, and you can see some of the things that you have here. You can get your drop caps and things like that. They're special.
Is drop caps where it drops all caps to lowers?
Right.
No, drop caps isn't where it makes them all upper, turns them all into lowercase. Isn't a drop cap that beginning one of a paragraph where it's bigger and covers 2 lines?
Yeah.
Is that a drop cap? You would have to turn it off then for the successive characters.
having trouble with that. Anyway, the third one I went was frames. And I'm wondering if, you said that people were having trouble. And
They're having-
do
we're
they
having-
know that frames is what they're looking for?
No, probably not.
Okay.
Microsoft has that one-click text box thing, you know what I mean?
See, that's the other thing. With different Office programs, one of the things you have to get used to is that they probably all have the same features, but they might not appear in exactly the same place or with exactly the same label. You know, I put LibreOffice into my on the computers at my parish because, you know, they needed new computers and they didn't have enough money to go out and buy Microsoft Office for the people that are there. So the bookkeeper is complaining, well, it doesn't have auto sum on the spreadsheet. It's like, it does, but it didn't say auto sum. It had the capital sigma. If you knew that the capital sigma was what you were looking for, you were fine. But do you know why it's a capital sigma?
That means auto sum.
That language.
Sigma is the Greek S.
Right.
So
For
it's
sum,
for
yeah,
sum.
yeah.
Well,
But
in
did you-
math, it also means you sum from this to this.
It does. Did you know in math there's also a product symbol,
Yeah.
which is a capital pi
Oh, I did not know that.
for product. It's the Greek equivalent of P. So product, you know, a sum is adding a bunch of numbers. Product would be multiplying a bunch of numbers. So, you know, it's shorthand. But, you know, the point is, if you're looking for it a certain way and you don't see it, you think, well, it's not there. And this is why I say, when you're working with these programs, understand the basic concepts, then what you start thinking is, I know this has to be here. Where did they put it? Instead of saying, well, I don't see it, so it's not here.
Well, there's
Which-
that RTFM thing.
Yeah, but you know, I do not blame end
Yeah.
users for
It's
the fact that
always-
computers are complicated.
It's always the end user's fault.
Yeah.
Always the end user's fault. Hepcat is the answer.
Oh.
I don't work that way.
Well,
Anyway.
you would if you supported enough users.
So if I go to insert, I can insert a frame. And when I go to insert a frame, again, I've got a ton of options here. I mean, this isn't just a text box. This is a text box on steroids. All right? So I can start talking about, you know, width and height, and do I want to lock it into a paragraph? Where do I want to position it on the page? I can have look at all my options for wrapping text around it. Put in a hyperlink. I can start saying what I want to have in borders. I can put in a background for it. Set it up as columns. And with columns, I can, you know, even start flowing. So there's a lot of stuff that I can do here. So anyway, that created my text box, which, you know, now that it's there, I can do all of the things one normally does with text boxes.
How can you make it centered on the page?
It is centered horizontally. You want it centered vertically as well?
No. It's not centered. Oh, never mind.
It is.
Maybe I can't see your whole
You
page.
can't see the whole
Okay.
page. Did I neglect to change this? That's probably what it was. I didn't. So it really is centered on the page.
So what do we use it
They use it for making those, especially in the lower L's, like first, second, third grade, when they're making worksheets. They put like the instructions in a text box at the top and then questions down the side of the sheet with spaces for answers.
Allowing for the fact that I'm a lousy typist.
You put 2 columns in your text box.
Oh, that's right, I did, didn't I? I was showing you all the things you can do.
So how do you get that sidebar where you're editing all that stuff? Or go ahead and change your thing then.
Yeah, where did I? Yeah, I do that. Sorry, I set that up as 2 columns.
The
Still
left,
set up as still.
on the left?
Yeah.
No, close this box. On the left, where you have all the options you're editing.
Here.
How do you get that box?
I inserted a frame. That is called a frame.
No, that whole thing on the left, where you have all your options.
All this time.
All that stuff.
Yeah,
that
that's
box
easy.
is right now.
Somewhere.
First, I opened it. Let's go back. So here's what you would normally see
Yes.
if you had installed LibreOffice. So the question was, how did I get that styles window that I had anchored to the side of the screen? So normally you wouldn't see that. So you would just open up LibreOffice, you would have a blank page in front of you and nothing else. So what I did was I went to styles and formatting, or as you can tell, I could have just F11 would have done the same thing. And that opened it up over there. Then I went over here and I hold down the control key and I click along this row here. Give it a quick double click. And it goes over there.
Now, couldn't you drag it to the top and just it would automatically anchor itself at the top then? No, I guess not. Because you can do that when you start an additional toolbar.
Mm-hmm.
They start as a floating toolbar, and then you can drag them into the toolbar area at the top of the anchor.
If you drag it to a certain spot on the right or the left, it'll do it.
It'll auto anchor.
Yeah, let's see.
Yeah, I'm used to it on the left anyway, so that's...
Oh yeah, he just auto anchored his by dragging it over there. You don't have to do that.
Yeah, there's a way to drag it. Well, I think you first.
Yeah,
Yeah. See,
now-
now you have it off.
Now drag it
Now
over.
Drag it into that, like where it would
No,
normally
grab
sit.
where it says styles and formatting, and just drag it.
Yeah, oh, you had it there for a second where you.
No,
Well, that's one spot, but.
it'll anchor on the left too, Kevin.
Might have to do customized toolbars to do what you want. Yeah.
No, he just drug it over there and it anchored. There.
But that's fine. I mean, there is a way to do it. It's just
Yeah.
you have to hit a certain spot to do it.
So,
Like a hot corner.
anyway, you
That
could,
sucks.
you can put your text box here at the top of the page, do whatever you want. You can even make text go around it if you want.
Can you do it in a circle? No, I'm just joking. Do it in a circle around it?
No.
I'm just messing
No,
with you.
we're talking about text here.
Yeah.
A text circle.
So anyway, that's the stuff I had prepared for today.
That's
Could
cool.
you do the placeholder again one more time?
Sure.
I missed that.
It's in fields and
What was the question?
the question was to once again demonstrate placeholder text fields.
Okay.
And remember, the definition of a placeholder text field is that's a field that when you click on it and start typing, it replaces the placeholder with the stuff that you type. It's the kind of stuff you see on web forms all the time.
Yeah.
But you can do it in this document. So it is a field, but you don't see it in the list of fields that's here. So you have to go down to Other. And it's under Functions, tab, Placeholder, and I'm making a placeholder text. You could put a placeholder for other things as well. And then if you go over here to the placeholder field on the right, that's the text that will actually appear in your document. So type here, and there we have it.
Oh, okay.
And then I, come to that document and say, okay.
So if you wanted to have a template where everybody in your office can write up a letter and it's always formatted the same, then you could stick those in and they say, okay, name goes here,
Right.
address.
And if you wanted to, you could stick in a footer that would apply to all of them. You could put in a logo, stick in a graphic that has your company logo.
Yeah.
So do graphics, not to interrupt your talking, but do graphics transfer easily, between different versions and different software products?
Picture is an object. You can drop a picture in to a cell in the spreadsheet. You can drop a picture into your presentation. You can drop a picture into your word processing document. The pictures are pretty standard. Most of them are, you could be working with JPEGs, GIFs, PNGs, things like that. They'll work fine on any program, on any system.
Cool.
One of the things that I do at work is I have set up a footer on all of my documents, and in the footer I have several fields that I've set. One of them is going to tell me where the file is stored. So if I create a document and it's on a shared network drive or a SharePoint site or something like that, this will tell me, here's where it is. And so every document I create, that's already there.
Does it dynamically change? So if it's saved on a different place?
Yeah, because it's a field. If I had manually typed it in,
Yeah.
it wouldn't do that. Because it's a field, it updates. And the other thing is I put in stuff to, page 1 of 5 thing that I stick in my footers.
Which field would you do to use that?
Let's see. Down the footer. Let's see where that. I'm trying to remember.
Oh, okay.
I haven't saved it, so you're not seeing anything down there at this point.
But if you save it to your desktop, then it'll show up a path to your desktop.
Okay, so yeah, let's. There you go.
That's cool. I like that idea.
Yeah. And the nice thing about having something like that in your template is you don't have to think about it. It's like every document you create, it's going to be there. There was a time where I used to remember to go down to the footer and put that in every time I created a document, and one day it was like, dummy, templates.
Can you say that's not going to be printed? Can you
Oh no,
say
it is
that?
going to be printed.
I know, but
Can you tell if
can
it's
you
just
tell it
appear
not
and
to?
not print?
So that, so if you're doing letters and you're going to be printing it and sending it to people, you don't want your path to be there, but if somebody, Well, I guess if you open it, you know where you opened it
don't-
from.
Wouldn't it?
I
Well,
don't know the
hidden
answer to that
paragraphs under
question.
view.
Huh?
Hidden paragraphs under view.
Oh, that might be what we want. Well, that'll show you any hidden paragraphs. You want to turn this into a hidden paragraph, yes.
Yeah. Well, it doesn't matter.
Yeah,
You just
Tony,
need
there
that
may be a
field.
way, I don't know.
Yeah.
That's the only problem with doing these kinds of presentations, that people start asking you questions that you've never even thought of.
Well, so now you were saying you're gonna get version 6, and I've been playing with version 6, and a lot of it doesn't line up. It's not the same pick and select type, thing.
Right.
So,
But again, this is why I say, if you focus on learning a particular package, then you become helpless every time the package changes. If instead you think in terms of, these are the concepts I need to be working with, to me, I was at Concordia, I was doing all of this with Microsoft Office. And Concordia, for those of you who don't know or don't care or whatever, it's part of Lutheran Church, Missouri Synod, and there's like a district office right across the street. So the district office said, we really need someone to help us, since you do all the training at Concordia, can you come over and train some of us? I said, great. They said, of course we use WordPerfect Office. I said, no problem, give me a copy of the software.
Yeah.
I know what I want to do.
Yeah.
I just have to get in here and say, okay, where did Corel put this? Might be a different menu, but I knew what I was looking for. Again, every word processor, in fact, if you don't have these features, it isn't a word processor, it's a text editor. Every word processor has templates and styles. And for every word processor, that is the key to, using this stuff intelligently. So, if I want to train someone on any word processing program, it's just, okay, where did they put this stuff? And it just takes a little bit of time sitting there to say, okay, it works this way. Now, one last thing. I've been creating, and I've really just gotten a start on this. You notice I did not do a slide deck, because for what we're doing today, that just wouldn't make sense. But what I am trying to do is start documenting more and more of this stuff as a series of tutorials that I can put up on one of my websites, and I showed you the website before.
The water pipe.
But I obviously closed it. So anyway, that's it, www.ahuka.com. LibreOffice 3.5, and if you want to go back and take a look at DOS,
No thanks.
and you laugh, but I keep getting, I took it down like 5 years ago, so I thought no one's ever gonna. I got an email within a couple of days from a guy who was a professor of computer science. He said, I use this in my classes, put it back. Oh, okay. And I get probably 5 or 6 messages a year from people who went to my DOS lessons. And some of them are just saying, thanks, it's the first site I saw that actually explains this. Or at least half of them are, well, how do I do this? And then usually what it turns out is they're trying to use the terminal window in Windows 7 and wonder why it doesn't work the way. It's like, well, that's not DOS. Number one, you're not in DOS.
So the DOS emulator.
Well, right, it's still used for people who work with embedded controllers and things. They just need a real simple terminal interface. They don't need all the other stuff.
It doesn't cost me anything to leave it out there. My hosting company charges me a flat amount for 2 gigabytes of storage space. You're not anywhere near using that up.
Only 2 gigabytes? How much you pay?
$4 or $5 a month. It's not.
You're on the wrong service.
You're overpaying.
and I've got 3 different domains up there, and it's all for that one flat amount.
Well, we're also going to be posting the video out on probably YouTube, so we can send that through the if you're on our list, you'll
Oh
pick
yeah,
that.
I subscribe to the mdlug list.
Okay, now it's really poor quality. I mean, I'm just amateurishly playing with this.
That's cool. Yeah, I'm gonna start. So, I'm gonna be adding to this, but some of the stuff we talked about, you can see. If you go there, there's some stuff about templates and styles. I have to go back and see. I thought I had more stuff up there, so I wonder if I somehow lost something. Or there should have been more. Oh, wait a minute. Huh? Yeah. So anyway, that's it.
Thank you.
I should have